Ted Bundy, the charmer who killed. Chronicle of America's most notorious killer. By Dark Case Diaries, where depths are shared. January 24th, 1989. Florida State Prison. The crowd outside is already restless. Hundreds have gathered, some with signs, some with radios, all waiting for a moment they've been promised for over a decade. The execution of Theodore Robert Bundy. Bundy's story is not just about a killer. It's about a man who defied every stereotype of what a monster should look like. Handsome, articulate, seemingly harmless, yet capable of unimaginable cruelty. Tonight, we walk through his life, his crimes, and the trail of devastation he left behind. Early shadows. Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24th, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. His early life was steeped in secrecy. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was unmarried, a scandal in 1940s America. To protect the family's image, Bundy was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his older sister. The truth, that the man he believed was his father was nowhere in the picture, would haunt him. Those who knew him as a child remembered a boy who smiled easily but kept his thoughts to himself. By his teenage years in Tacoma, Bundy's charm masked something darker. He was fascinated by crime stories, pornography, and tales of abduction. Neighbors reported missing tools, slashed tires, but no one ever suspected polite boy next door. College years and the mask of normalcy. In 1966, Bundy enrolled at the University of Washington, studying psychology. He was intelligent, ambitious, and outwardly normal. He dated, went to parties, and even volunteered at political campaigns. But underneath, he was learning how to read people, how to mimic their emotions, how to gain trust, and how to disappear into a crowd. It was during these years he met Stephanie Brooks, a woman who represented everything he wanted: status, beauty, and security. When she ended their relationship, friends noticed a shift in Bundy. His rejection didn't make him withdraw. It made him plan. First disappearances. 1974. Women began disappearing around the Seattle area. Young, attractive, with long hair parted down the middle. Bundy's preferred type. Witnesses often described a man with a sling or a cast, asking for help loading something into his car. That car, a tan Volkswagen Beetle, would later become infamous. Authorities were baffled. These weren't random crimes of opportunity. The man was careful, confident, and always seemed to be one step ahead. Across state lines, Bundy's hunting grounds expanded. Utah, Colorado, Idaho. Bodies began appearing in remote areas, often so badly decomposed that identification was difficult. His method was chilling: lure, incapacitate, control. In Utah, he posed as a police officer to gain the trust of potential victims. In Colorado, he broke into homes, attacking in the dead of night. By 1975, he had become a phantom, a predator without borders. The first arrest, August 16, 1975. Bundy was pulled over in Utah for a routine traffic stop. Inside his car, police found a ski mask, rope, handcuffs, and a crowbar. It wasn't enough to convict him of murder, but it was enough to make him a suspect. Investigators began connecting him to disappearances in multiple states. They realized the same man had been seen at more than one abduction site, a man named Ted. Bundy was charged with the aggravated kidnapping of Carol Durant, one of the few women who had escaped him. Her testimony would become a turning point. The first conviction, February 1976. The courtroom in Utah was tense as Carol Durant took the stand. She told the jury how Bundy had flashed a badge, claiming to be a police officer, and persuaded her to get into his car. When she sensed something was wrong, she fought back, escaping from the vehicle before he could overpower her. Her account was chilling, but Bundy remained calm, smiling at times as if amused. The jury, however, wasn't swayed by his charm. He was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping and sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison. For most criminals, that would have been the end of the story. For Ted Bundy, it was just another chapter. Suspicions grow. While Bundy served time in Utah, detectives from multiple states began comparing notes. The similarities in the disappearances were too precise to ignore. Victims vanished near college campuses. They resembled each other physically. They were last seen with a man using the name Ted. In Colorado, a new case emerged, the murder of Karen Campbell. She disappeared from a hotel hallway in January 1975 while on vacation. The trail led straight to Bundy, who had been in the area at the time. Bundy was charged with her murder in 1977 and extradited to Colorado for trial. The first escape, June 7, 1977, Pitkin County Courthouse, Aspen, Colorado. Bundy was allowed to use the courthouse library to prepare his defense. No one noticed when he opened a second-story window and jumped to the ground. He vanished into the mountains, surviving on stolen food and clothing. For 6 days, he evaded one of the largest manhunts in Colorado history. When police finally caught him, he was gaunt, exhausted, but smiling. The second escape. Back in custody, Bundy was transferred to a jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. There, he set his most ambitious plan into motion. He lost weight, essay, went a hole in the ceiling of his cell, and climbed into the crawl space. On the night of December 30th, 1977, while most of the staff were on holiday break, Bundy slipped through the opening, changed into civilian clothes, and walked out the front door. This time, he didn't hide in the mountains. He fled the state entirely, heading for Florida. Florida State University. January 15, 1978. Tallahassee, Florida. Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Within 15 minutes, he had attacked 4 women, killing 2, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy, and brutally assaulting the others. The crime scene was chaos. Blood, broken bones, and the stunned survivors who could barely comprehend what had happened. Bundy fled the scene, but the violence wasn't over. Within weeks, he abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his youngest known victim. The final arrest, February 15, 1978, Pensacola, Florida. Bundy was pulled over by Officer David Lee for driving a stolen Volkswagen Beetle. When asked to identify himself, Bundy gave a fake name. Lee noticed inconsistencies, and when he attempted to arrest him, Bundy fought fiercely. After a brief struggle, Lee overpowered him. At the station, fingerprints confirmed the truth. They had finally caught Ted Bundy. Across the country, newsrooms lit up. The phantom killer who had crossed states and outwitted police for years was now in custody, preparing for a trial. Florida prosecutors wasted no time. Bundy was charged with the Chi Omega murders and the assault on surviving victims. The evidence was overwhelming. Eyewitness accounts, bite mark impressions matching his teeth, and forensic traces linking him to the scene. But Bundy wasn't about to sit quietly. He insisted on representing himself, dismissing lawyers and antagonizing the judge. It wasn't just about legal strategy, it was about control. Bundy loved the spotlight, and for the first time, the whole nation was watching. The media circus. The trial began in June 1979 and became the first nationally televised murder trial in U.S. history. Cameras captured Bundy smiling, chatting with reporters, and even flirting with women in the audience. He cross-examined witnesses, delivering long-winded speeches that often had little to do with the evidence. At one point, in the middle of the trial, he proposed marriage to Carolyn Boone, a former co-worker who had moved to Florida to support him under Florida law. Her acceptance in court made them legally married. But behind the theatrics, the prosecution methodically laid out its case, and it was damning. Guilty. On July 24th, 1979, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty of murder in the first degree. Bundy showed no visible reaction, but his eyes flickered, a brief flash of anger. During the sentencing phase, the judge addressed Bundy directly. "Take care of yourself, young man. I say that to you sincerely. You're a bright young man. You'd have made a good lawyer. I would have loved to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner." Bundy was sentenced to death by electric chair. Kimberly Leach trial. While on death row, Bundy faced a second trial for the murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. This case was even more emotionally charged. The victim was a child, and the evidence linked Bundy to her abduction and death with devastating clarity. In February 1980, Bundy was convicted again and sentenced to death a second time. Any chance of legal reprieve was slipping away. Life on death row. Bundy spent the 1980s in Florida State Prison, alternating between appeals and media interviews. His charm still attracted attention. Letters poured in from admirers, and journalists lined up for a chance to speak with him. But the clock was ticking. Every appeal denied brought him closer to execution. The confessions began. For years, Bundy denied involvement in the murders. But as his execution date loomed, he began confessing, not out of remorse, but as a bargaining chip for more time. In chilling, matter-of-fact detail, he described luring women, overpowering them, and disposing of their bodies. His known victims numbered over 30, but investigators believed the real figure was much higher. Bundy's cold recounting of events gave law enforcement valuable closure for unsolved cases, but also revealed the full scope of his depravity, the psychology of a predator. Experts debated for years what drove Bundy. Was he born evil or shaped by circumstances? Psychiatrists noted his lack of empathy, his ability to mimic normal emotions, and his compulsive need for control. Bundy himself offered little insight, often blaming pornography, societal decay, or vague forces beyond his control. In truth, he remained a puzzle, a man whose polished exterior hid a complete absence of conscience. The last days, January 1989. Bundy's execution date was set. Crowds began gathering outside Florida State Prison, some holding "Burn Bundy, Burn" signs, others there simply to witness history. Inside, Bundy gave final interviews, including one with Dr. James Dobson, where he again blamed pornography for fueling his crimes. Few bought his explanation, but the interviews ensured that his voice would linger until the very end. The execution, January 24th, 1989. At 7:16 a.m., Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair known as Old Sparky. Witnesses described a visible jolt as the current surged through his body. Moments later, he was pronounced dead. Outside, the crowd erupted into cheers. Some set off fireworks, others chanted. For the families of his victims, there was no true closure, but there was an end. Ted Bundy remains one of America's most infamous killers. Not just for his crimes, but for how he defied the image of what a monster should look like. He proved that evil can wear a smile, speak politely, and shake your hand before ending your life. His story is a warning. Predators don't always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes they walk right beside us. This is Dark Case Diaries, where only depths are shared and explain the details. Please stay tuned. For more, thank you